Now Kodak. Now Kodak, through photography, brings you this edition of the Screen News Digest. Now Kodak, through photography, brings you this edition of the Screen News Digest. Now Kodak, through photography, brings you this edition of the Screen News Digest. Now Kodak, through photography, brings you this edition of the Screen News Digest.
Hello, everybody. This is Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where, let me mute this. I guess I didn't realize that this had a soundtrack to it, this little clip at the beginning. Anyways, I'm Skip Elsheimer. This is the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. We watch old films. I'm outside. It's nice out. Doing this before it gets gray and rainy, which is going to happen later this week. All right, let's watch Fog Firefighters. Enjoy.
The new proven method of fighting fire is with Food Machinery Corporation high-pressure fog firefighters. They are self-contained and can be mounted on most 1 1/2-ton chassis. Many fire departments have used them for several years and have shown unusual reductions in fire and water losses. This FMC high-pressure fog firefighter truck made over 200 fire runs in a thickly settled township in 1944. Including runs outside the township, 15 miles distant. The truck has a high-pressure pump, 2 hose lines, 2 fire guns, and a 400-gallon water tank and accessories. FMC high-pressure fog for firefighting was originated by the John Bean Manufacturing Company, and from research work and actual firefighting, the most efficient pressure is proven to be 800 pounds at the pump, delivering 600 pounds or more at the gun. 800 pounds pump pressure atomizes water into its greatest heat-absorbing condition and discharges it with penetrating velocity so that each gallon gives maximum quenching without waste and with practically no water damage. It is the 600 pounds pressure at the gun that makes the fog. This shows the effectiveness of 2 hose lines working side by side. An FMC high-pressure fog firefighter truck can be manned by 2 or 3 men. This fog stream shows carrying power, and when used at closer ranges, it has needed penetration to reach base of the flames, yet it still is fog when it comes in contact with flames. There are many variations of the fog settings. 3 important ones are the powerful distance stream, the middle-width fog for hot fires, and the wide dense fog for close work. The settings are made by turning the gun barrel with the left hand. The 600 pounds discharge pressure, because of more than 800 pounds pressure at the pump, is proven by years of service. This demonstration was put on by the Michigan Firemen's Association at Marine City, Michigan. The building was 20 by 30 feet, 10 feet high, and was filled with inflammable materials such as furniture, orange crates, and so forth, and had a tar paper roof. Oil and gasoline were used to ignite it. The picture shows intense heat and full flame, just about as much heat and flame as you could have in a building of that size. Notice the way the firemen approach the fire and watch them change the shape of the fog. Hundreds of actual fires like this one are fought annually with quick knockdowns and practically no water damage because of the greater firefighting efficiency of high pressure. The fire was knocked down in 10 seconds and the whole fire was out in 25 seconds with only 25 gallons of water. Remember, the standard truck tank will hold 400 gallons of water. The big advantage of going into action instantly on arrival and carrying your own water saves 2 or 3 minutes at the critical point of the fire. The 800-pound pump pressure gives you a combination of finely atomized water and high velocity. 1 gallon of this water, properly used, has fire-quenching possibilities many times that of low-pressure water. Kent County, Michigan, uses 5 FMC high-pressure fog firefighters, with the result that total losses have been cut to under 10%, compared with the recent all-over total loss in one state not using high pressure of approximately 74%. The house with the upper front roof gone is a typical stop of a bad fire by using FMC high-pressure fog. The fog firefighter made an 8-mile run to find the upper part a mass of flame, but quickly knocked it down with 100 gallons of water. The fog goes in, the fire goes out. There's nothing else it can do. In November 1944, John Bean Manufacturing Company staged these demonstrations before hundreds of interested New York and Pennsylvania firemen at Endicott, New York. This old 5-room house, tinder dry, was set on fire 4 times with gasoline and oil. The final big all-over fire was knocked down in about a minute with 70 gallons of water. 2 Endicott firemen, who had never before used high pressure, proved the fast attack, easy movability, and quick quenching of this system. With high pressure, the fireman goes right in with confidence. He knows he's going to extinguish the flames quickly. High pressure appeals to insurance men particularly because it practically eliminates water damage. In this Endicott fire, there was no water in the cellar after all the fires had been put out. On these various structural fires, you have noticed intense flame and heat. The fire-killing action of the fog may not show except in the speedy manner in which the fire goes out. One man can handle the gun on a ladder or roof by himself. In no case has the fireman hesitated about approaching the fire, and he is doing fast, efficient work, yet something that any fireman can do without fear when working behind the dense, fine fog of FMC high pressure. You can have hot fires in a very small space. With FMC equipment, the fireman is protected against the heat and can move right up to the fire. Several different actions take place with high-pressure fog. The fog blasts the flame away from the burning material, cools the material rapidly due to the fineness of the fog, which absorbs more heat per gallon of water, and the fog turns into steam, creating a smothering action. Remember that even with a long-distance carrying stream, the water becomes fog upon striking the burning materials. This fine fog blows smoke away and absorbs considerable smoke and gas. The FMC fog firefighter is ready for use immediately upon arrival at the fire. It takes just a few seconds to throw the pump in gear, and the pressure is at the gun when the fireman is ready to use it. Both Army and Navy found FMC high-pressure fog for plane crash fires faster for firefighting and rescue work. You will notice in the following fires that one fireman will use the dense close-up fog and another one on the same fire will use the longer distance setting, yet both of them are effective. The longer one is used when necessary to allow the fireman to stay a little further away from the heat or to reach distant fires. Many fires in closed rooms in houses or basements can be knocked down from the outside without firemen taking all the heat and smoke. Practice fires were built for Army and Navy instructors. Here you see them approaching the flames with high-pressure guns, affording them protection while killing the fire. High pressure makes possible fast, close attacks on sizable fires. Fires in smoke and gas-filled rooms can be put out from openings at some distance from the flame without flooding, because the fog can be driven right to the flame. FMC firefighters can handle any type fire. Many of these oil pit fires were extinguished with 3 gallons of water or less. Several oil pits at Endicott, New York, were filled with acetone, magnesium filings and shavings, cutting oil and crankcase oil, and ignited. High-pressure fog, through the action of instantaneously turning into steam, quickly absorbs heat and lowers temperature of material below the combustion point. One oil pit was 65 feet in width and contained 500 gallons of inflammable materials. It was put out in 2.5 minutes and reignited and put out again. Water can be used from any available source: fire hydrants, cisterns, lakes, or streams. All you have to do is get the suction line to it and start pumping. Imagine filling a room with fog like this. The fire just can't help but go out. Automobile and truck fires are easy for FMC high-pressure fog. High pressure is a special advantage in the case of brush, grass, and forest fires. The self-contained unit can move speedily into the field with its own water supply. FMC high-pressure fog firefighters have won the confidence and endorsement of fire authorities and users for using less water, doing a quicker job, affording surer protection, and practically eliminating water damage.
A big fan of advertisements for fire fighting technology circa 1950s. Yeah. All right. So at some point, Encyclopedia Britannica acquired a bunch of films from the company Emerson, and many of them were these biographies of American heroes. And so this is one of those. This is about Lewis and Clark. Enjoy.
To the average American of 1800, the West was a void, a black land of desolation, from whence no man foolhardy enough to march into it might return. But 2 Americans did lead a party into the bleakness, setting down the facts of the wilderness, binding the continent from ocean to ocean with the truth. These leaders were Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Together, they unveiled America's destiny. William Clark was born in 1770 in Albemarle County, Virginia. Following in the footsteps of his older brother, George Rogers Clark, conqueror of the Revolutionary Northwest, William Clark became a lieutenant in the Army of the United States. Meriwether Lewis was born in 1774 at Locust Hill, the family plantation, which was not far from the home of Thomas Jefferson. As a youngster, Lewis loved to ramble about in the wilderness. Both Lewis and Clark served under General Anthony Wayne, who trained his troops to a fine point for wilderness fighting. In 1800, Thomas Jefferson, then President of the United States, appointed Captain Lewis to be his personal secretary.
Full salutation, Lewis. You know, you've been most melancholy these past few days, my boy.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, you didn't realize that I hadn't forgotten that little plan of ours. Tell me, Lewis, do you think it's really possible that there are prehistoric mammoths out there?
Out where, Mr. President?
Why, out west, of course, beyond the Mississippi, in the Emperor Napoleon's territory. I've heard that a huge mountain of pure salt lies out in that wilderness. You may be the first white man to ever see that wonder.
Mr. President, you mean the expedition?
Yes, Lewis. Finally, the expedition to the west. You love to take long walks by yourself in the forest. I mean for you to have your fill of them.
You can't know what this means to me.
Not half of what it can mean to your country, Lewis. Your job will be to command a corps of discovery, to find the best land route to the Pacific. You will map the land's topography and note its plant, animal, and mineral resources. You will bring this government into touch with the Indians of the West and help divert the fur trade.
But, Mr. President, the land belongs to France.
Not for long, I hope.
And most of the trade is being done by the British from Canada.
We'll take it from the British and divert it down the Missouri River to St. Louis. That's why your party will travel up the Missouri and find its source. Oh, by the way, Louis, do you know any hardy souls who might go with you? Particularly a man to share your command?
Well, there's Moses Hook, lieutenant in the infantry. He's a good man. But Billy Clark, the old redhead, there's a natural leader for you. And none better when it comes to maps and sketching.
Not George Clark's brother. With one of those Welshmen with you, you needn't worry about a hairy mammoth. It'd turn tail and run for its life.
Jefferson prevailed upon Congress to appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of extending the external commerce of the United States. And in 1803, Lewis and Clark began to mold a group of 37 men into a corps of discovery. While Lewis set about purchasing supplies, Clark trained the small force at Camp River du Bois, near the mouth of the Missouri River.
Now, Shannon, there's your musket cleaned. Now you clean mine.
Captain Clark, sir, I don't think I'll ever get it right.
Captain, sir, might I be taking young Shannon and whacking with the by private like a dead soldier? Very well, Paddy. Yes, sir. Come on, me by. Old Paddy'll see you finish your lesson.
Captain Bill, Captain Billy, Captain Lewis is here. He says send him men to help him unload supplies. He said, hurry, hurry.
All right, York. All right. Pryor, Ordway, Dooyard.
Captain Billy, Captain Sir, that fool Captain Lewis done brought all manner of fool thing with him from St. Louis.
Mern, how are you? Sure good to see you back. Did you see them transfer the territory at St. Louis?
Oh, that I did. First from Spain to France, then from France to the United States. All in a matter of 2 days. Very formal, but the land is ours.
Yahoo! Jefferson did it. The Corps Discovery won't need passports now. That's Yankee land, and all for $15 million.
The Louisiana Purchase.
And what did the captain bring back this time to overload the boats and break our backs on the trails?
Oh, mostly Indian presents this time. Tomahawks, red flannel, combs, butcher knives. 4 dozen of them. 8.5 pounds of red beads. And 73 bunches of assorted beads. 15 dozen scissors. 2,800 assorted fish hooks.
Just a few odds and ends. I know. One of the most important missions of this journey is to make a good impression on the Indians. Build up a happy trade with them.
And to keep the men happy, I managed to bring our total supply of whiskey up to 30 gallons.
That should get us well started. By the way, Captain Lewis, I got a letter from the War Office.
Good. They finally got around to recommissioning you as a captain.
Not as a captain, as a lieutenant in the artillery.
What?
Look here, Mern, you said we'd be co-commanders on this campaign.
Well, that's the way I've always spoken of it. That's the way the men think of you. You've just as much authority as I, Billy, and that's the way it stays.
Captain, with quotation marks around it, eh?
I picked you, Billy, because I knew you could lead. I'm depending on you, Captain. You've got the confidence of the men. Together as co-commanders, we'll get to that Western Ocean and back again. Agreed?
Agreed.
By the way, how's the work coming with the boats?
Oh, very well. The bateau's almost finished. The 2 pirogues are ready and waiting.
May 14th, 1804. The Lewis and Clark expedition started up the wide Missouri. It moved upstream through the last outposts of white man's civilization. And by October, the party had reached a point 50 miles north of modern-day Bismarck, North Dakota. Lewis and Clark selected this site for winter quarters. Here they built Fort Mandan and waited for the spring. And here they found Charbonneau, a Frenchman, and his wife, Sacagawea, a Shoshone Indian girl.
Merci. Say it, squaw. Merci.
That's enough, squaw man.
Oh, but of course, Capitaine. Still, Charbonneau does not understand. She is but a squaw. Among the Indians, she is less than nothing. At the most, property. And Sacagawea owes me much. She's a captured Shoshone girl. Who knows what might have happened to her if it had not been for me, a loving husband. But I am a weak man that cannot stand to see suffering.
Her body is covered with the marks of your beatings.
Well, I have shortcomings. But as you have said, I might be valuable to you as an interpreter. Still, I don't know. I don't like to be tied down. Perhaps some little incentive.
Say $25 a month.
Oh, Captain Louis, that is a very fine offer. You hear, Sacagawea? $25 a month. So, how valuable is your husband, no?
Your wife will accompany us, Charbonneau. She'll be able to interpret for us when we reach the land of the Shoshones.
Oh, very, very true. Very true indeed. She can row and carry, and she can stand very much.
Now, little Pomp. What's the trouble, huh? Don't you worry, Sackett. I'm gonna call you Janie. Don't you worry, Sackett. Don't you worry. We're gonna fix up Pomp in no time.
Yes, we better take good care of him while we can. Next winter, instead of bringing people into the world, we may be ushering them out.
Spring 1805. The Corps of Discovery started again up the Missouri. Next stop, the Pacific Ocean. Every foot of the way was set down by William Clark. Every object of interest, everything that went to make up this vast new land was noted carefully by Meriwether Lewis. And every stroke of the oar seemed to enrage the Missouri. They would not be denied. They made the boats move, always upstream, always ahead. When they needed smaller craft, they hollowed canoes out of the forests. Every new mark on the map was etched in hardship, anxiety, courage. They put names on the land and waters, past Maria's River, onto the Great Falls, and then to the dilemma of the Three Forks. They called them the Gallatin, Madison, and Jefferson Rivers, and went up the Jefferson Fork, coming in sight of the great mountains that divide a continent, the Rockies. Here they met the first Indians since leaving the Mandans in spring. They were hopeful of aid.
I told you Jenny there would come in handy when we found the Shoshones.
I'm amazed Sacagawea can still talk to her people. She certainly wasn't any help when it came to finding their villages. How's your rheumatism, Billy?
Well, it'll be fine if Jenny can talk Kamiawait into giving us some horses and some help getting over those mountains. What's she talking about, Charbonneau?
Well, Charbonneau does not understand Shoshone talk. But I told her to tell the chieftain about the great white father to the east, the blessings of the white man's trade, the usual...
I'm beginning to feel like a drummer selling his wares. Every time we sit down with the Indians, it's the same sales talk over again.
Gilliard's outside giving the braves gifts. He should have a big effect with this tribe. They've never seen a white man before or a firearm of any sort. And the Shoshones are a hungry bunch, and no match for the Blackfeet. They don't even get their fair share of buffalo. If they could trade with the states, they'd have a chance to prosper and...
Charbonneau, what's the matter?
No. Sacre de nom, it is not possible.
What are you talking about?
Gentlemen, I am the husband to royalty. Sacagawea, you will not believe this. Long ago, she was kidnapped, as you know, but she did not know or remember her position. She is the sister to the chieftain, Kamiawait.
Why, then Janie can get us what we want.
Oh, oui? No. Although Kamiawait will probably do as she asks. She has no real standing.
But she's his sister.
Certainement. But Sacagawea is still only a squaw.
With the help of Sacagawea's tribe, the party obtained horses and guidance. Up and over the Rocky Mountains. They found the beginnings of the river that could carry them downstream, down to the Pacific. The men were heartened. The rest of the journey would be downhill. But difficult as the journey up the Missouri had been, it was nothing to the harrowing trip down these roaring cataracts. Through the country of the Nez Perce, down Snake River into the Columbia, down Homley Rapids, past Mount Adams and the Cascades, and out to the ocean. Yes, there came the day when William Clark wrote in his journal, "Ocean in view." Winter 1805. The Corps of Discovery on the Pacific shore near the mouth of the Columbia River. Fort Clatsop was built, and the men waited.
I say marry her, Billy.
What?
Judy Hancock, marry her. Much better than naming rivers after her. An honor she may never hear of.
I'll marry her and name rivers after her.
You're an incurable optimist, Billy.
There'll be a ship along any day now to pick us up. The president knows it's about
Do you
time.
really expect a ship?
No.
It's been deadly dull for months. Not enough happening. No tobacco, no meat. Fort Clatsop. Clatsop. Have you ever heard a name with fewer possibilities than Clatsop?
Don't worry. You won't be here much longer. I've started planning a trip back home. On foot.
But we haven't any horses.
That's what I said. On foot.
Private Shannon reporting, sir. Relieved of the watch.
What do you have to report, Shannon?
Nothing, sir. And a great deal of it, I might add.
You can take a report back to the men for us. Tell them so far the trip has been easy. If they can stay alive during the walk back home again, then they've passed the real test.
March 23rd, 1806. The Corps of Discovery walked away from the Pacific Ocean. Its goal, the Atlantic. Back they toiled along the Columbia and over the Rockies. Clark took one party down the Yellowstone River to further explore and map possible routes of travel. Lewis took another party on toward the Missouri. At the juncture of the Yellowstone and Missouri, the parties met and continued to Fort Mandan. Only 1,600 miles to St. Louis. But back at Locust Hill, Meriwether Lewis' mother received a caller, an old neighbor and good friend.
Lucy, I have a conscience that's been bothering me about your son and about yourself.
Have you heard anything definite?
Nothing, only that Indian rumor has it that the party was last seen crossing the Rocky Mountains, heading for the ocean to the west. And that news, who knows how old it is.
No, believe me, Mr. President, I hold no false hopes.
You know, Lucy, those two young men aren't the first I've sent to pry the lid off the wilderness. But in this case, I feel I've sent men very dear to me. And to what fate? Torture, starvation, death. Did I do wrong, Lucy, to send your young man?
No, Tom. You gave Meriwether and William a chance for greatness, a chance to make their country great.
Thank you, my dear. And may God prove all our fears to be foolish. For if Lewis and Clark are on their way home, they'll travel faster than rumor itself.
Listen to them, Mern. They sound happier than we do.
St. Louis, Billy. They've got a right to be happy. It's all over. No more rotted elkskin clothing. No more choked cherry root medicine. No more Corps of Discovery.
We did it, Mern. And now I'm going to get married. Judy Hancock, here I come.
I'll go on to Washington and present our reports to President Jefferson. I just can't believe it.
Look here, Mern. It's all over but the shouting. What we did only needs doing once. Thank heaven.
It is together that we remember Lewis and Clark. For together they unveiled America's destiny and strengthened the claim of the United States to the Pacific Northwest. Neither could have done it alone.
Accents in there. I mean, I'm not good at doing accents, so, but yeah, that was, I don't know. The level of that acting was not great, but there you go. You got a bunch of these that were made for a variety of different historical figures, U.S. historical figures, and I don't know. I might show more in the future with equally bad accents. So I know it's been a while since we've shown a film about steel. You know, there was a period of time that it was like every day we were watching something from U.S. Steel or about steel. But yeah, This one is, I think, Bethlehem steel, and it's about earthquakes. Enjoy.
Man has always been a builder. Yes, man has always been a builder, but his structures have endured only when the materials he used were able to resist the forces of nature. Most of those forces we have found it easy to comprehend. The wind, the sun, the rain, and the snow. So understanding them, we have built our shelters against them. Simply at first, then as we acquired new skills and imagination, with increasing comfort, grace, and beauty. And with each advance, we might say to ourselves, this is good. This is beautiful. And this is durable. But always as we built, we took one thing for granted: the earth beneath our feet, the solid earth in which our structures were anchored. But the earth cannot be taken for granted. For sometimes in unexpected places and without a moment's warning, our seemingly solid earth will heave and twist and strain, wrenching our homes in its violent spasm, filling our minds with helpless fear. Leaving behind its hideous desolation. Desolation we have seen so many times and in so many places. San Francisco, Seattle, Santa Barbara, Long Beach, Helena, Manila, Tokyo, Tehachapi, Arvin, Bakersfield, and countless others around the world. Where next? Where no? We can only guess. If this be our fearful threat, where then shall we find our answer? We found our answer in the earth itself. For while the earth may tremble and quake beneath our feet, it also yields the rich ore from which we take our iron. Out of the iron we make our steel. And out of the steel we create the strength to support our buildings. Yes, even against the shock of earthquakes. For while the earth's shock can play havoc with those buildings which are poorly designed or built of insubstantial materials, there have been many examples that structures built of steel or reinforced with steel have been able to withstand the shock of earthquake. One such example was the famous old ferry building of San Francisco. Framed with steel, this venerable landmark was one of the buildings to survive the earthquake of 1906. With but minor damage to the tower. In the Pacific Northwest, a convincing example was the Smith, which, with its steel construction, withstood the earthquake of 1949. In Long Beach, California, the beautiful Villa Riviera, constructed of steel, was a notable survivor of the earthquake of 1933. And in Arvin, California, the Arvin High School, with its modern steel-reinforced construction, suffered only minimum damage in the severe Tehachapi shocks of 1952. What a contrast to the Cummings Valley School not far away, which, lacking such strength, was reduced to rubble by the very same earthquake. One does not like to think of children trapped in a collapsing schoolhouse. From such convincing evidence, we have the proof that steel is an important factor in the construction of earthquake-resistant buildings. But in order to understand why, we must know something about the nature of earthquakes themselves. To begin with, movements of some kind are going on in the Earth's crust somewhere all the time. Movements which, in their own way, are as restless as the changing tides of the sea. Many of these movements are so minor that we ourselves do not feel them, but we know they're going on because our sensitive recording instruments constantly tell us so. On the other hand, there are movements so strong and violent that we do feel them, and very sharply. Many of these movements have taken place along the Pacific coast, a region which, to many people, has become known as the earthquake belt of North America. Let it not be assumed, however, that earthquakes are confined to this so-called earthquake belt. Actually, earthquakes have occurred in every state. The strongest shocks of record in the United States occurred in 1811 and 1812 in Missouri. Another earthquake, originating in South Carolina in 1886, was felt 1,000 miles away. Earthquakes are no respecters of locality. They occur because of some slipping or rupturing within the earth, and this produces a fault. Sometimes these faults are even visible on the Earth's surface, such as the famous San Andreas Fault in California. It was the slipping along this fault which caused the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, and several later ones as well. Sometimes, too, an earthquake may cause cracks or fissures at the Earth's surface. At one location, the Tehachapi quake of 1952 created a crack nearly 6 feet wide and 6 feet deep, a surface indication of some rupturing deep below. And it is there that our story lies. The Earth, as we generally understand it, has 3 layers: the outer crust, the mantle, and the core. The outer crust upon which we live has an average depth of 20 to 30 miles. Beneath this crust is the mantle, extending to a depth of about 1,700 miles. And beyond the mantle lies the core, extending about 2,150 miles to the center of the Earth. Now, as already mentioned, we know that movements are taking place constantly in the Earth's crust and mantle. As the movements continue, stresses are built up, until at some weak point, the Earth's crust is overstressed, and a sudden shearing or slipping failure occurs. It is the sudden release of stress by the slip that produces the earthquake. From this subterranean rupture, vast amounts of energy are released, which radiate in all directions through the Earth's crust, mantle, and core. These radiations are called seismic waves. By studying these waves, we learn much about the origin and intensity of the earthquake shock. Such studies are made at seismological laboratories, located at strategic points throughout the world, where seismic waves, whenever they occur, are scientifically recorded on sensitive instruments known as seismographs. The various seismological laboratories, by pooling their information, can trace the origin of the shock and plot the degree of strain caused by the earthquake as well as its aftershocks. The seismograph is but one of many delicate instruments which tell of movements in the Earth's structure. One unique instrument, for instance, has been installed in a tunnel under the San Gabriel Mountains of Southern California. A device so designed as to measure long-term strains in the Earth's crust. As these strains accumulate, the resulting movements, too slight to be seen with the naked eye, can be measured and recorded. And it is hoped that such findings may make it possible someday actually to forecast when and where earthquakes will occur. Also, a special type of seismograph, so sensitive a breath can set it in motion, is used to measure the actual movement at the Earth's surface during an earthquake and its aftershocks. With data gathered in this and other ways, scientists are able to recreate the movement and behavior of earthquakes long past. For example, a mechanical device which simulates the ground motion of the Long Beach quake of 1933 is used to illustrate how buildings react under varying loads. In addition to studying earthquakes which have actually occurred, scientists also learn from purely hypothetical quakes. At one California university, itself a victim of the 1906 earthquake, a mechanical test creating shocks of varying degrees of intensity helps to determine how structures will react to possible future earthquakes. This study is all the more significant because the test structure is an actual scale model of an actual building located at Bush and Montgomery Streets in San Francisco, the Alexander Building, a slender 16-story structure built on a framework of steel. Like its laboratory model, the building itself is furthering earthquake research. For sensitive instruments to measure accelerations due to shock have been installed in the building at several different levels. With the aid of these instruments, it is possible to study the building's reaction to the forces created by earthquake movements whenever they occur. These, of course, are only a few examples of many types of research going forward all the time. And we have learned from such research that different types of buildings react in different ways to earthquake shocks. These differences can be illustrated by comparing the reactions of a low structure, a tall, slender structure, and an L-shaped structure. In the case of the low structure, when the Earth's movement causes the base to move, the roof, because of its inertia, tends to lag behind and does not immediately follow the ground. Its weight, therefore, creates considerable stress in the members connecting the floor to the roof. The resulting strains, known as shearing strains, may cause the structure to collapse unless the members are properly braced and tied together. With a tall, slender structure experiencing the same ground movements, the building oscillates, causing various bends. Consequently, the frame must have sufficient flexibility to permit the structure to assume the distorted shapes. Without such resilience, the structure will suffer excessive damage. In the L-shaped structure, if the ground movement is parallel to one wing, this wing, because of its length, may have considerable resistance to the shock. But the other wing is broadside to the movement and consequently will deflect more. The unequal deflection between the two wings will cause a twisting action. And if the building is not properly braced and tied together, this twisting or torsion may cause failure at the junction of the two wings. Obviously, if buildings are to withstand these destructive forces, they must be constructed of suitable materials which will not fail. It is for this reason that steel and steel-reinforced materials have become the key to earthquake-resistant construction. For steel is tough. It has two qualities highly essential to earthquake resistance: strength and ductility. Ductility is the ability of a material to undergo distortion, that is, to absorb energy without breaking. Steel has this ability. An actual load test shows that a load of 5,000 pounds is well within the elastic limit of this particular beam. For when the pressure is removed, the beam immediately returns to its original form. Even when pushed beyond its elastic limit, steel can sustain great loads. In this particular test, a load as high as 68,000 pounds distorts the beam considerably, but in spite of this, the beam still holds. So steel has not only ductility, it also has strength. Strength which is measured by its ability to withstand tension, compression, and shear stresses. And it has the ability to impart strength to other materials. Concrete is a good example. Here, a transparent form makes it possible to see how steel reinforcing bars are placed to best impart their strength to a concrete beam. From this reinforcement, the beam will gain both shear strength and tension strength. This can be shown by making a comparative test of two concrete beams of exactly the same dimension. The first beam reinforced with steel, the second unreinforced. The pressure is applied equally on both beams. At a load of 5,000 pounds, the unreinforced concrete is shattered, while the steel reinforced beam has sustained only minor cracks. As the load increases, the damage becomes visible, but the beam will not give way. Even at 30,000 pounds, it will not give way, simply because of the strength of its reinforcing steel. Perhaps no one knows this better than a wrecking crew engaged in demolishing old buildings. If the walls are not reinforced, whether they be of brick, stone, concrete, or any other material, they can be brought down without much difficulty. But if those walls be reinforced with steel, the wreckers have a bigger job on their hands. It will take a tremendous amount of battering to even chip the walls away. And even then, the steel still holds. The only way it can be removed finally is with the chisel or cutting torch. Yes, steel has both strength and ductility. But even these qualities were not enough to save a steel elevated water tank in the Tehachapi earthquake. Its collapse came about because, although built of steel, it was not properly designed to resist earthquakes. As another example, a brand new high school in Helena, Montana, only 1 month old, collapsed in the earthquake of 1935. It was a partially steel reinforced building, but again, not designed to resist earthquakes. Otherwise, it might be standing today. There are many aspects of good design, but insofar as earthquake resistance is concerned, one fact is of prime importance. The various components of any building must be tied together in such a way as to provide structural continuity. Structural continuity would be entirely lacking, for instance, in a platform resting on 4 uprights but not fastened to them. Such a structure might support a sizable load, but only so long as the force of the load continued to be vertical. If the structure were subjected to a horizontal force, inasmuch as its parts are not tied together, it would simply topple. Suppose, however, that platform and uprights are fastened together and partially braced. Now the structure offers some resistance to horizontal movement, but not enough resistance to withstand twisting or torsion, so that, again, the structure will fail. It is only when all members are properly tied together on all sides that the structure achieves true continuity and the strength to resist movement from any and all directions. Perhaps a more homely illustration is the simple cardboard carton. With its lid open, the carton offers little resistance to outside pressures. But if the lid is closed and securely fastened, the carton has strength to resist forces from any direction. The lid forms what is known in structural design as a diaphragm, which, when properly tied in, gives strength to the whole. In much the same way, a building derives strength from its floors and roof, for these are the diaphragms of the building. But as in the case of the cardboard carton, these diaphragms must be tied in properly in order to provide a maximum of structural continuity. Here again is one of the advantages of steel, for in addition to its strength and ductility, steel is workable. It can be fashioned and fitted in countless ways, which not only facilitate construction, but make it possible to achieve complete structural continuity. Much of this is done before the steel even reaches the construction site, at the fabricating works, where steel is fabricated into convenient units. Units which, because they're properly engineered, will give a building the strength it needs to resist the forces of earthquake. Thanks to such modern techniques, intricate assemblies of every size and description can be fabricated and transported to the construction site, where erection time is saved because of the work already done at the shop. Base plates are fastened to their anchor bolts. Columns and girders are fitted into place. And as the building grows, each member is tied into other members, so that finally all units are integrated into one endless continuity. It is from this continuity and from the strength of its steel that the building derives the ability to resist even the shock of earthquake. And it is fortunate indeed that the strength, toughness, and ductility of steel can be given to many materials which otherwise might be weak or brittle. Concrete is only one example. With steel reinforcement, the beauty and utility of brick can be used in new and safer ways. Glass becomes stronger and safer. Plaster acquires form and durability. And masonry is given a dimension of strength and continuity which the material alone cannot provide. With the aid of steel nails, clips, and bolts, wooden structures acquire the same essential continuity. Even buildings with many openings and large areas of glass can withstand shock if they're properly designed and constructed. For each material has its purpose, and for all building materials there is one common denominator: steel. Nor have we seen the limits of what we can do. Public-spirited men everywhere are working constantly to advance our knowledge of earthquakes, of earthquake-resistant design and construction. Geologists, scientists, structural engineers, research engineers, architects, earthquake men and building men. The knowledge they contribute is vital to our welfare, but that knowledge alone is not enough. It must be followed by public understanding and public action. So it is that public officials all over the country are re-examining their building codes and causing codes to be revised. Codes which will protect the people of their communities not only against fire, flood, and storm, but against the unpredictable threat of earthquake. Through sensible compliance with these codes, many communities have caused schools and other buildings to be abandoned solely because of unsafe design or construction. Many communities, realizing the danger in overhanging parapets and other gingerbread construction, have enacted legislation requiring them to be remedied or removed, and with good wisdom, for even if the building stands, its unsupported parapets and ornamentation are more than likely to be shaken down when the earthquake strikes. And beware to those below. In the city of Los Angeles, the building code requires that some types of parapets be removed and replaced with steel-reinforced bond beams, which, when tied into the main structure, reduce hazards and often give additional strength to the building. Removal is not always required, however, for with certain types of parapets, it is possible to tie them into the structure with steel bracing, thus reducing the accident hazard. So we know what we must do. We must make our homes and our buildings safe. We must build them soundly to give them lasting strength. And those entrusted with public responsibility must see that proper codes are not only enacted, but also enforced. For while we cannot yet predict when or where the next earthquake will strike, we know that with wisdom, foresight, and continuing research, we can arm ourselves against it. We can use our weapon, steel, and when we use it wisely, even the earthquake will lose its terror. Our people will be safe and secure.
Steel! Yeah. It's been a while. Welcome back, Steel. Fascinating film. Dated, of course, but in hindsight gives us some 2020 about earthquakes in California and in San Francisco. Thanks for tuning in today. Very much appreciate your eyeballs and your comments. This week is it's going to be a weird week. I think we're going to pre-record Thursday and Friday. I'm just going to take a break, but we'll still show you stuff. It'll still be great. But if you like what you saw, we would appreciate if you hit the thumbs up button, or if you hit the like button. You can also share what we're doing. And also, we are adding an inordinate amount of films to our channel. And so watch some of them. Some of them you've seen here on the channel. Some of them you've never seen before, but would love for you to watch them. And that ad revenue helps. It's pennies, but it adds up. And our YouTube piggy bank helps pay for storage units. If you want to do something more definite, you can use the Super Thanks button to support us, or also ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are great ways to help. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Where's my outro screen? It's way down there.